Observation 1 is the resolution. Ask this subpoint is a resolution. The United States federal government should substantially increase regulations on the creation of artificial and general intelligence.
Artificial and general intelligence?
Artificial general intelligence. Autobots, Mudflap, and Skids, a pair of twin robots voiced by Tom Kenny, and they sport notable urban accents and have gold teeth. At one point, they're asked if they can actually read their ancient runes. They reply, "No, we don't. Do we reading?" The movie company specifically made a copyright claim about this portion of Transformers 2 because they actually wanted to avoid the discussion of race. Observation 2 is going to be the framework. The first is going to be that the plan should be evaluated as a vehicle to discuss ontological and epistemological justifications. This turns debate into a question as to why we should act rather than as to the impacts of how we act. But additionally, this will be on top of the plain text. We believe we can justify as to why the plan is a good idea, that this should always be the focus of the debate. The second is going to be that reimagining is always going to be reimagining beyond its key to question our own methodologies. For example, the justifications are the only notable factor in the world of fiat. For example, the plan doesn't actually happen at the end of the round. Additionally, there are only speculative claims about potential impacts, which at the bottom. Additionally, reimagining is also key to actually break down our own methodology, and this is also critical for us to be individual critical actors. I'll get you at the bottom of the advocacy. As an unconditional obligation to the other, Chase and I offer the following plan text. The United States federal government. The United States federal government should increase regulations on AGI by decreeing that representations of artificially intelligent characters in film are steeped in whiteness. The United States federal government should increase regulations on AGI by decreeing that representations of artificially general intelligent characters in film are steeped in whiteness. Any questions?
Yes.
Cool.
Who is the actor of the plan text? Who is the actor of the advocacy or plan text?
Our argument is that there are no actors in the round, there are only speakers. We are the speakers of the plan text.
Okay.
All right.
We
advocate for the U.S. federal government ought to do this.
Okay.
Advantage 1 is going to be whiteness, and is whiteness in science fiction cinema. The contention 1 is going to be the inseparability of science fiction film and race relations. The first is that science fiction film and race relationships are actually inseparable. For example, the Hollywood sci-fi actually rose to prominence during the same time as White Flight in America, but also those films were actually reported popular anxieties about political deviant identity and bodies. But the second is going to be that these films are actually classified the inner city as the inner city as the object of both utopia and dystopia. But the third is that during the height of post-war suburbanization, the United States, the white American access to privilege, the white American increased access to privileged suburban housing, but also rejecting the city as the acceptable way of life, not only increasing the amount of physical barriers that they had between the inner city by navigating communities, but also through changing racial geography. The sci-fi has actually led to an increased amount of racial arena. The sci-fi is the racial arena in which suburban America can actually measure their whiteness against the other. The contention 2 is going to be Whitey's on the moon and now Whitey's on Mars. For example, the representations of artificial intelligence, human life forms, only Caucasian actors. For example, in The Matrix, the Oracle was not a major character, and she was actually a token. For example, the movie was actually stolen from a black woman, but also in The Matrix Reloaded the Matrix Reloaded actually makes commentary on non-white allegiances to whiteness via henchmen. For example, the mayor of Indian actually was not only when he leaves, the spawns actually fight for him, highlighting them as to actually value themselves as tools of whiteness. But the contention number 3 is going to be that the impact is Foucaultian racism. For example, the ethical dimension of racism is actually legitimized by because of certain groups as seen as a body politic. Not only does this actually highlight the sub and super race, but also the way that actually general intelligence is actually represented in sci-fi media. It's not only that there's individuals who are no longer capable of actually are always going to be seen as the enemy, but also this identification actually leads to the producing the continuum of violence. For example, the sub race has actually led to not only daily aggressions. For example, an individual just simply walking down the street has to be faced with a woman actually trying to hide her purse or even cross in the street, but also the daily aggressions actually not only increase that on the state level. For example, the division is the root cause of this division is the root cause of conflict. For example, wars are not currently fought on geopolitics, but they are actually fought on eugenic violence. For example, in World War I, the war was not fought due to the Black Hand actually assassinating Ferdinand. It actually was happening due to the Australian Hungarians actually oppressing Serbians. This is not only highlighting about how the wars are currently fought on eugenic violence, but also the way that we not only increase the way our relationship to the other. For example, we actually see the other as an individual race rather than another person. For example, the ability to actually identify ourselves and identify with the other is also crucial for the way that we actually have collective responses, but also when the construction of threats is actually based on sub and super race, the state apparatus has to maintain purity through interest of the majority. For example, this is the same thing that happens on the U.S. federal government level when the United States federal government actually increases mandatory minimums on crack versus cocaine. Crack, which is is not only a cheaper drug, but also is mainly used by minorities. We see it specifically, not only is this another instance of how the state specifically cracks down on individuals that are claimed to be quote-unquote minorities, but also this makes all other forms of annihilation inevitable. For example, when the state not only increases their aggressions against other, but also acting through the state is necessary, embracing the state is necessary in this instance, because the ability not only the ability to actually reverse our past atrocities is always going to be crucial to our ability to actually not only solve in the future, but also to understand what happened in the past and be able to learn from those instances is always going to be crucial in a world where not only are we capable of solving, but also when we get to contention 4, which is shifting perspectives. Number one is that mainstream science fiction is a good tool for criticism and interrogation. For example, the cultural system is actually not only key to the individual drive, but also Harvard University actually did a study saying that the internet and different forms of technological advancements are actually the way that we actually spread ideas, but also the exploration in science fiction is actually key. For example, the way that we actually shape our expectations of reality is through that of science fiction. For example, when everyone's bitching about not having hoverboards yet, it's mainly because they saw it in a science fiction film. For example, this is not only raise our expectations of reality, but also relies on our ability to have an understanding of the future. The second is that as the world increases connections with the cultural systems of science fiction, science fiction will produce increasing relevant and elaborate criticism, crossing boundaries of contributors. The third is that, for example, in District 9, the personification of otherness and the figure of human who is not yet human enables the film to create insights about racism, militarism, and also the encampment and inequalities. But also the fourth is going to be that the sci-fi of today equals a reality tomorrow. For example, what is happening currently right now, not only the way that we actually conceptualize reality is through that of our imaginations, that it's mainly personified within sci-fi context, but also the failure to actually consider leads to the future of society. Our inability to actually reimagine the future through sci-fi films means that we are not actually able to actually reimagine the way that the world could or should one day be. But an example of this would all inevitably lead to the cyborgs of whiteness, leading to massive violence.
Chill. Alright. The order is 1, 2, 3, the case, and then if I have time, there will be 2 more bottom. We'll see.
Do I need more than these for any of them?
I flow critique straight down on one sheet of paper. If you flow on several, then you will want several.
Can I ask the paper for someone?
Yeah, for sure.
Yep, there's a
We've got one right up here. Yeah, the MO, Megan answers the K straight down on one sheet of paper.
Okay.
So it's 3 off, case in order, and then how many off possibly on bottom? 2. Yeah, give me 2 seconds.
Are you ready?
Yep, sorry, what was the order?
3, case 2.
Right, so it goes.
Framework the interpretation is to evaluate the base as a dialectical materialist. You are a historian inquiring into the determination of factors behind the PMC. The role of the valid is to endorse the historical outlook of the topic with the most explanatory power. The first is particular facts are relevant without a historical theory. The F is universal. It makes it universal when it's particular to capitalism. Second is the focus on methodology. Is key to praxis because otherwise ideology is constrained by political imagination and implementation. Third is the debate is the crucial speed for resistance. Current politics are held hostage by the economic elite, and we are debaters we as debaters must change our relationship to capitalism to determine how capitalism's strength happens over us. Next is the methodology of Marxist labor theory as a value for the best description. First, because we were born into an economic situation, so this is the first thing that we should look to. These are instances of consciousness that are only intelligible through prior cause and universality. Totalization theory is the most productive because it allows for a coalition building in particularism, which assuages political partiality. And third is ideology. Capitalism imposes an epistemological bias which causes bankrupt decision making and also causes dismiss radicalism. Next is identity politics entrenches capitalism on 2 fronts. It first divides us into a rule strategy where racism is only one issue, and the cake can only answer the question of why people are racist. Framing race in terms of the culture is logically circular and trades off with universalization resistance to oppression. Little b is returning racism from an economic to a cultural level means that it is private matter of individuals. This justifies unequal wages and undermines unity of workers in the face of their exploits. The exploiters. The second argument is that liberalism is bad because it forces looking only to proximate issues which ignores the way that we are all part of the classist system. Third argument is that your affirmative blames race but ignores that the cinema industry itself is what allows non-white bodies to be commodified and statistically divide. The links first that AGI seeks to enhance and develop into
Those were links.
Nope. Okay, those were the ones.
No, read these as well, but
Oh,
whatever.
also, AGI seek to enhance and develop instrumental rationalism. This is a way of seeking to understand the world through twofold lens of efficiency and utility. The second is instrumental rationality, eradicates knowledge of labor and time over a process. We do not acknowledge what goes into the final product. Third is that you fetishize the object of AGI, which is an untenable infinite thought machine which commodifies fetishism, which means that the end goal can never be attained through infinite production of consumption by the elite. The fourth argument is that AGI creates external production, which is also validated with the hierarchy of knowledge and production power of prioritizing patterns. Based on the calculation thought, AGI guarantees that there are no other ways of thinking that are disregarded. This turns the case because AGI cannot have emotions and also justifies cultural genocide. The impacts of the capitalism fuels the imperial to secure new sources of expansionism. This organizing principle necessitates a cultural crisis and massive warfighting, technology, and ecological destruction. Capitalist logic of logic exhausts resources through continuous consumption. There are no new markets for capitalism to expand to means infinite destruction of the environment becomes inevitable. Third argument is instrumentalization of life. This internal link towards your world makes it impossible for you to access it. You makes it impossible for you to access identity on its own when you use individuals as instruments, especially to prove the point of the state. Also, no turn. Oh, you want something?
I want the argument that the objectification that happens through capitalism, where the worker becomes the object, makes people into bodies, controls the internal links of the argument.
We control the internal links of their body because you make people in people into objects when you
The process of labor does this.
through the process of labor, which is the process of capitalism. The alternative is to vote neg to endorse Marxist labor theory of value. Vote neg to endorse Marxist labor theory of value. There's your copy. Do you have any questions? So the first argument is revolutionary theories of current part. The alternative is only relevant in a gravity of capitalism. We share form historical necessity. This allows us to reconfigure how we relate to capitalism on an individual level, which is the only way to stop object fetishism and objectification of our relationship to capitalism shapes our knowledge. And second is the voting negative allows acts for an ethical necessity for criticism while bringing bringing us to violence where we are complicit in capitalism functions to universal acceptance on an individual level because there is no center for capitalism's power, which means that we can be destructive from any point. And third argument is that the versus capital is key to revolutionary policies and implementation fails because it makes it possible that capitalism can solve these problems and it also creates the magnification of the violence of capitalism that allows it to regenerate. Next. First argument is that you need to defend the implementation and enforcement of a policy action by the United States federal government. This is good for several reasons. First, it's necessary for grounds. Not only is it necessary for the strength of its links, it's also necessary for competitiveness. This means that you rob negative flexibility LLC is necessary because it's the only chance that we have to make. It's the only chance that we have to make offense against your what I see that we will be able to respond to your answers to means that it's necessary for you not to get only answers against us. Key to fairness and equitable distribution of fair. Next, it's good for deliberative democracy. It's necessary to talk about policy making. We will become political decision makers, which means the political evaluations are necessary for our polity education. This is especially necessary to inform ourselves about how we make voting decisions in the future, even if we don't become policy makers. Also, it's bad for predictability. Your apps is bad for predictability because it's infinitely unpredictable. It increases the limits exponentially because there are infinite isms and things that the state can be wrong that you can criticize. It's unpredictable which ones you're going to do, which means that there's an infinite scheme for the affirmative, especially when you get 3 weeks with the topic. And we can only 7 minutes to respond to your to think about your app. The next argument. Okay.
Do we want to, what's the
I don't want that.
Yeah, I just want to get
Okay, next is case.
Can you read this up?
Can you read
Yes.
your interpretation on the argument?
Defend the implementation and enforcement of a policy action by the United States federal government. Science fiction is bad. First argument is that fiction is embedded in capitalism for the selling of books and movies. And the second argument is that entertainment is based on short-term emotional gratification and not long-term change. We watch movies like the Lorax leading GMO popcorn out, paper cups. The third argument is that fiction divorces our consciousness from the body, making people learn things not based on their body's physical experience or Western science. Science fiction inherently forces a mind framework that excludes deviant populations. Next set of arguments that discussion, embrace, and debate are ineffective because it creates a huge amount of backlash and forces teams to say things like racism good. This is empirically proven through reactions to Townsend's argument. This causes an enormous amount of exclusion from people from debate because they think that they're forced into a mindset where they either say racism good or they just lose the debate. People don't want to say morally reprehensible arguments, which means that people are forced to leave the activity. Also, which means that you collapse debate. We think debate is good because it's the only opportunity for some individuals to get a unique type of policy or critical education. Also, we think that when we argue about something, we automatically find ourselves believing our own arguments. This turns your solvency because in a dialectical opposition, you will always err on the side of your own arguments. Next. You want me to read this?
No, I
Do you want me to
don't.
read this?
No.
Read
Yeah, read that one.
Okay. Next.
This is a new sheet.
Yes.
Cool.
Unionist first argument is the continuing resolution is on a bulk of government programs will pass in the status quo. The Democrats proposed it and supported to Republicans. Agreed to a discussion under coming to the board with Ryan as their leader. The Republicans passed this year in the House and now to fund military cuts and government shutdown. Only next is there's no political UI will stand they cannot support this year and the current political climate because both parties fear that it will come to a game of chicken that will shut down the government. Reconciliation on CR will happen before the 27th, but 7 days to get it. A few days before, in order to have reconciliation, this process will be a hard fight because the bill's diversion from military and social policies on the House and Senate will also be necessary for reconciliation. Next is the least plain question of Obama's credibility with Republicans because there are large regulations on businesses, new markets that allow Republicans and Obama to have to be anti-business bills and excuse to make larger distraction from the Senate CR debate. Also, yesterday they agreed to limit the debate on the CR, which means that now is necessary, now is immediately key. Internal links. First is that the Republicans don't allow the CR to pass in the Senate and government shutdown because there's no land in Obama to make it through, and Obama doesn't have the political capital to arms to reconcile, the Republicans have reconciliation, which means the bill fails. USFT shuts down on the 27th of March, and all non-essential employees are furloughed and non-essential programs are canceled. This means that all debaters die on the drive home from nationals because all rest areas are closed. Also means that meat inspectors are non-essential, which means that they can cut this collapse in the meat industry. Meat is especially good to the agricultural. Meat is especially good because it allows us to provide food aid. This is necessary for because if the international confidence in our beef fails because we don't have meat inspectors, then means that millions of people will die. We have an ethical obligation to prevent starvation on a massive level, especially since 2 million people rely on our food aid.
Cool. Yeah. It's going to be the alternative, then the solvency, basically the alternative debate straight down through solvency, then we'll be going back to the links, and then briefly touching on framework.
Your framework or ours?
Huh?
The framework to the K or the
your
framework about to be
framework
a policy
specifically.
maker?
Your framework specifically.
Which one of our frameworks?
The framework
Your
on your
framework.
critique of
Okay.
Cal.
The dialectical
Yeah,
material
yeah.
stuff. Yep. And let's see, where do I have
I
the?
got it. Are you going to do conversation stuff on the
Yeah.
alt page?
Alt, straight down through solvency, links. Then we'll be going over the new procedural, defend fiat. Then politics, debate.
Whoa, back up. Is there a new sheet of paper in the NG? Or
No, there's not a new sheet of paper.
The new, okay.
Yeah. Okay. And then
There are
it'll be
policy
case in order on bottom. So yeah, I'll give that all one more time. That can work.
I can look over it, it might be a little taller.
Yeah, whatever, I'll just sit down to it. It's easier. Alternative, alt solvency, links, your framework, procedural, politics, case.
You're doing permutations on the alt, probably?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll let you do it.
So I can
Is everybody ready?
Yep.
Our first argument on the alternative is the permutation. Our permutation says, do the plan and endorse the Marxist labor theory of value. Do the plan and endorse the Marxist labor theory of value. There is no competition within this alternative except the words of a negative addition. We have several benefits for our permutation. The ace one is the multiple ideologies come together to better answer back the way in which we have intimate connections with capitalism, better understand the way in which we relate to it in the judge's mind. Also, in the status quo edition, Judge's argument says that multiple ideologies can also check back with individual weaknesses and blind spots in each other's positions. They make it capitalism is an inertial argument is that this argument is already answered because we can better question the multiple ideologies, the way in which we relate to capitalism. The beast one is there in double when either of the links to capitalism are so strong success when also in the judge's minds that the alternative can overcome it, or the alternative is so strong that can overcome the permutation. The cease one is juxtaposition. Our argument is juxtaposition is uniquely key in the specific answers because we're questioning the way in which difference relates both on a socioeconomic level and also specifically on a racial level, which means that the clarification between the ways in which these interact better results in the permutation. The these one is we argue their alternative takes far too rigid methodological approach to the ability to resolve for capitalism. Our argument for permutation is absolutely key to create a new politics of decidability that is necessary in order to break down the way we can create a new trajectory for the way in which capitalism functions and around the east one is the alternative is completely self-defeating. Our argument specifically is that the alternative takes such rigid stance that it kicks on anyone who ever maintained past by capitalists that you can't play this anymore, or we all say the alternative is in a double when either it is too rigid and it means continues to kick people out, or alternative is incredibly fractured because everyone has a different idea of what it means to take on the Marxist theory of value, which means that alternative action never gains momentum. The F one is either the app is consistent with the criticism, in which case the permutation is the most desirable option because the alternative is an opportunity cost, or because the alternative is not an opportunity cost, or the app and the criticism are antithetical to each other, which means the permutation exposes the nuance, the interplay between between the competing perspectives and determines our understanding with either strategy, which means permutation is always desirable in the round. The G point is to say their alternatives also an attempt to foreclose on oneness and saying specifically the ways in which we are racing flash disclosing each other. But them simply saying that the only alternatives are means of solving back this is new, creating a means of difference in the debate or means of the interaction solve back for the types of solve problems that they're specifically mentioning on the alternative proper. On their specific solvency arguments are first argument, your alternative to solve only creates new hierarchies, replace one match second part of another, which means inevitably that there's only instantly going to be a new rejection theories of value. Our arguments as an empirical warning, we simply say that when people have rejected capitalism still in the past without focusing on race, that still have racial oppression to continue in the past. So you use a great example of this, how there still is Chechen oppression in the status quo. That means you have to impetus on this question. Additionally, we say the permutation is absolutely necessary, resolving back to the type of revolutionary politics you're simply saying is absolutely necessary. Going over the links. Our first argument is turn. We say on the difference linguistics, criticize identity politics arguments turn that their specific your representations are essentially all operating under colorblind racism. Our argument is specifically that there is non-neutral forms of oppression. The oppression must be viewed then informed by your perspective, specifically in terms of how race is happening. The next argument is turn. Your arguments are ahistorical. Specifically, the Neanderthals had racial oppression before the implementation of mercantilism, and also capitalism means that we're winning a root cause argument. In addition, we tell you that there have been instances where we rejected capitalism completely, and there still is racist problems. And in this case, that we need to interrogate privilege, which is propped up through capitalism, and also use that as a means of breaking up capitalism together. We are allies in this situation. We say that your specific emphasis on just class is problematic. That is when necessary why the permutation absolves this argument as well. The next argument is turn. You need to fully throw yourself into the system in order to critique the system. This is GJ's argument specifically in the culture, and also we contextualize this specifically to rejecting capitalism. That Occupy Wall Street failed because the political movement is the kind of factor reason why the average is absolutely necessary to resolve this sort of question. The next argument is to turn the next argument to determine the average is necessary to problematize modes of difference, specifically the type of ableism that occurs when you perpetuate a form of privilege is necessary to break down the ways in which capitalism can be continue to justify itself. Our argument specifically is the way that capitalism through the elites can justify its own existence that is absolutely necessary because of racial boundaries. Our arguments that we break down those racial boundaries means that we're necessarily revolving the entire question whatsoever. The next argument go for the framework. Argument here on their interpretation of framework is that dialectical materialism is vague. It doesn't apply specifically to capitalism. It means we get a fully aware impacts as well. There's a Hegelian argument, which means not specific to Marx. Marx only applied it to capitalism later, which means that our impacts fully flow into your framework. You can question methodology and epistemology. We're both agreeing on this position means that both sides should be able to weigh the impacts in this debate around equally. Procedural. First argument, we meet your interpretation because you're our first argument, we meet your interpretation. We do defend the implementation of policy in the United States federal government. Our argument is that you're interpreting so vaguely. You never say what it means to implement a specific policy. Our argument is our specific advocate in the United States to reimagine the ways in which you can configure race is implementation of the policy. The second argument is counter interpretation. That we should be allowed to advocate or reimagine the ways in which the United States federal government does policies. Again, we should be able to reimagine the ways in which the United States federal government does policies. Our arguments meet this interpretation because our advocacies are reimagine the way in which we can see fiat. Additionally, you can also extend Chan's argument specifically why fiat is bad and key to reimagine fiat is absolutely necessary. These are also terms that are specific standards why fiat is absolutely necessary to debate on. Their specific standards arguments, there's no articulate grounds, no bonus positions like potential disadvantage. The next argument is this deliberative democracy arguments the limits are bad because it only forecloses means which revolution can happen because it's saying this is a space in which you are not allowed to debate, and that is problematic because it only means revolutions continue to argue problematic, which is another impact turn to your criticism means you link your own criticism. You're trying to create modes of difference in and of itself and trying to foreclose the revolution you're specifically trying to solve for. Politics. Drop the impact level. Well, first argument, this totally links hard into capitalism because they're essentially ultimately saying that this type of food aid is good and it's necessary in order to profit the sort of market system within these individual countries. The next argument is that the collapse of food aid is probably a good thing because it actually allows these individual countries to develop their own sort of infrastructure necessary in order to reverse the classist mentality that is occurring in the status quo because many companies like Monsanto and also the World Food Vacancy actually use this type of food aid in order to profit by these sort of unjust practices such as the structurally adjusted programs that have actually co-opted in the Argentina's own legal system. It means that they all have a chance to gain self-mobility. The next argument turn, the public food aid is also really bad because it also collapses food prices specifically because farmers only access to compete against free food. It means that they're out of a job only to propagate the global north and global south means that the permutation is actually resolves this question because this is an example, a perfect instance of where you're immediately focused on just the politics and also specific capitalism is really problematic. You only link your own hard your own criticism here and also you perpetuate the divided economies in global north and global south. The next argument is term we specifically say this is only going to lead to the problem of individual imperialistic and colonialistic mindset makes war inevitable. Typically you're going to say these people cannot defend themselves means that war is inevitable. You also be linking the sub-race extinction arguments. Jen makes on the case. Let's go there now. First, they say whiteness is embedded within capitalism. Our argument is that you're not winning a root cause. Specifically, we're saying that actually there was racial dynamics before capitalism was created. Capitalism was an idea that emerged out of mercantilism around the 1500s. That means we're actually going to resolve this question. Additionally, don't allow them to make new characterizations of what capitalism means. They don't really stable interpretation of what it is. Our argument is that capitalism is a type of where the means of production is owned privately. That is the classical interpretation. Don't allow them to make new arguments trying to send this back to history by creating different definitions of capitalism. Next, this is saying entertainment is bad. Our first response is only defense best. Additionally, we say that also interrogating the way in which entertainment works is actually far better because actually shapes what we interrogate the future. This is all she in sci-fi arguments that do not go or they go completely conceded. Thirdly, she says, or thirdly on their third argument is the cold herd model checks back. Specifically, the people have abstract concessions before they move on to actually hard and material against actions of the world. This is absolutely necessary to check this back. The fourth argument says specifically we're ineffectively forcing to say that things are racist. Our argument that is not just because you could read a bad argument doesn't mean we have forced you to. You actually have an alternative that you have another advocacy is not morally bankrupt. Furthermore, we say it's not a reason why you should not go for the plan. It's not a justification just because people could debate badly. The next argument, you said this doesn't collapse debate our arguments in a way in which you foreclose that means a revolution, specifically the way of the way see because it might collapse debate is the worst form of argument. Is the worst form of argument because you're trying to foreclose other morally appropriate approaches to different structural problems. People never debate systemic impacts in the world. This is true. Next, the debate community is incredibly resilient. People have been running criticisms for Long Beach for 20 years. The debate community has not collapsed yet. Probably won't actually collapse. You still have to be debating capitalism means you're not absolutely no impact this is having. Furthermore, we say turn and then extend the rest of the shell. Specifically, go to contention 3. We solve back for the entire racism issues that are occurring right now, which is an internal link turn to the commodification discussions that they're saying right now. They concede that we solve all this. We solve for the commodification that is specifically occurring right now. You also extend that the state operates in the manner of minimums, so you can use crack down on minorities, but that's why we need to completely interrogate the state. You also can extend 100% of the impacts, which are completely conceded. A reason why there's going to be extinction inevitable in the world. We can commodify these individuals as the other. This is a disadvantage to the alternative because it does not recognize this through the racial others. It only references things in terms of class, which means there are always going to be vulnerabilities and otherization that continues to occur in the interim.
It's going to be an overview that I would like to load on a new sheet of paper. Then it is going to be the critique in the order of framework, links, it's going to be the LSE order, it's going to be straight down, links, impacts, alternative. Then it's going to be case.
Do we need the framework sheet from case?
Huh?
Do we need the framework sheet from case?
Which sheet?
Disadvantage one, I'm guessing.
Oh, yes, that's going to be the first thing on case. USFG action. So I guess the theory. And then the politics to that. Everyone good?
You did it one more time.
Yeah, definitely. Overview, critique in the order of framework, links, impacts, alt. The procedural framework, the case debate, starting with sci-fi, and then on race and debate, and then on contention 3, and then the politics of that. Everyone knows a minute left, Elim. Everyone good? University Board is going to be winning this debate round for 3 reasons. For a couple of reasons. The first of all is because we have more specific analysis of how these different types of critical theory interact with each other. You don't address any of the links that we read besides the links on race, which means that the fact that you incentivize AGI technology, use as an instrumental rationalization mindset, which leads you back into the capitalist discourse, that we criticize. This makes racism inevitable and turns your 1AC. The next argument is that you don't address the fact that science fiction is itself embedded within the capitalist discourse, which means the root harms of your app are only possible with any capitalist framework, which is professionally going to reproduce this. In addition, you drop our argument that this means that the only way to understand and solve the root cause of the issues that 1AC proposes is to understand the universalization of class. At the end of the day, we're going to be the only one giving you a specific solvency mechanism, which is the type of rethinking through Marxist labor theory, where as the affirmative team doesn't isolate any type of solvency coming out of their case, only that they talk about race. This is not a method. You can't vote for this. Framework. First, I'm going to classify the role of the ballot, which says the role of the ballot is to endorse the historical outlook of the topic with the most explanatory power. We articulate this is going to be uniquely key because, as Kate's arguments on the method stated, Marxist labor theory is the best description of this. It allows us to understand the primacy of the economic situation because we're all inherently born into this. In addition, this is a universalizing issue that affects everyone on the globe. In addition, the ideology of capitalism imposes epistemic blind spots, which means that we're unable to look at certain social issues within a capitalist framework because they don't fall into the production mindset. This means issues like race get pushed to the side, which is why we can't talk about things like racism within the world of the status quo. In addition, this is also within our framework. We're going to eat. Okay, the framework debate. You vote for whoever's method is better. We're going to be winning historical materialism is better than their method. Links. The first argument I want to make is to cross-apply Katie's to cross-apply Katie's links on AGI, which will completely concede that this is a method of thinking that you use in order to address race, which is to promote the idea of robots within movies. This is an AGI technology that enhances the idea of instrumental rationalism, where we think that robots and the implications they have with humans makes humans themselves into objects because it's all part of the production discourse that exists within the world of the status quo. Your link terms don't answer this. Even if you would have risked those, we don't need to win the race links in order to win this debate round, but we're still winning them anyways. On interpretations operate under color blind. This is not true. We look at the root cause of the issues. We look at how people become objectified. Looking at race alone does not solve this issue. Case analysis on the effect level debate will solve that. I'll go there later. Next, to say that you say terms ahistorical, the race profession comes first. Look, this is a chicken and egg debate. No one's probably ever going to be able to solve which one happened and which one happened historically first. We articulate those the way the racism articulated itself, the way that it did through discriminatory policies that exist in the status quo is because of what happened with slave trade, which was primarily based in capital exploitation. Next, you say to oneself in the system, which is Zizek argument. Ha ha ha. Zizek says like 10 different things. This is ridiculous. Also, you putting yourself into the system makes you believe that capitalism can solve capitalism problems. Regeneration argument make only alternative debate means that you're not capable of solving when you didn't answer this argument. Next, you say turn the app problematizes modes of difference and break down racial bonds. I want to cross-apply the localism argument, which says that it forces looking only to the issues which are proximate to us, which ignores the universalizing issues that prohibits coalition building and makes solvency impossible because we can't understand the ways in which the universe, in which the world is structured. In addition, I want to cross-apply the identity politics link that says that this divides capitalism onto two fronts. We say that racism we say that hard racism is an issue of class. Class allows us to look at racism, but racism does not allow us to look at class, which is the main distinction between these two things. Impacts. We're going to be controlling the internal link to the objectification impact that both teams are going for. In addition, we're also controlling an external link to eco-destruction, which is going to be a tiebreaker in the world where you think that we both solve for objectification. First of all, the destruction argument. We have like the capitalist perpetual logic of consumption means that we're going to inevitably exhaust our resources through this continuous consumption. There's not enough markets in order for this field to expand, which leads to inevitable extinction. We articulate that this is unique to our alternative because without breaking down capitalism, which is what I see inevitably does not do, we're incapable of solving this ecological collapse, which means that ecological collapse. This implicates uniquely people on the periphery, which includes minority populations because they don't have access to resources and being able to protect. The next thing we're going to go for is the instrumentalization of life. The process of labor where we as individuals produce things like movies and then relate to ourselves through those makes the human into the object and the product that we're creating, such as the movie or the robot, into the thing that we look at for analysis. This is shown through both the science links that we articulate coming off of the case debate as well as through this great instrumentalization argument that I give Katie coming out of the LOC. We say that this type of instrumentalization is what causes objectification. And we don't have a world in which we view objects as having intrinsic value and being able to do that, we're incapable of solving for the root cause of objectification. Alternative. You make a bunch of permutation arguments without addressing the permutation preempts. Cross-apply the alternative here, which has a couple specific things. The first is that reconfiguring our relationships with capitalism on an individual level is the only way to solve this type of objectification and fetishism. We say that you're not capable of stopping this type of fetishism because you still look through things like science technology, which links you to AGI, as well as science fiction movies, which means that you can't endorse it. You can't completely obliterate this. This links you back into the regeneration argument because you're using things within the capitalist system to show why racism is bad. It means you're using capitalist objects in order to try to solve your solvency mechanism. This reifies the idea that these movies, the science fiction, the production of objects is good, which means you're impossible for someone to proceed within the long term. You make a bunch of arguments about how multiple ideologies are good. Cross-line above, we need to understand the universal structure of capitalism for the frame debate. This means that it's incapable, but this means the movements are always going to be fractured in the world of the permutation because identity politics makes us separate from each other and creates divisions between populations, which is never capable of solving back. You said this is the only thing to check back from multiple types of epistemologies. We're showing you the capitalism deconstructs objectification, which is the prerequisite to being able to even have these ideologies or articulate this within the world status quo. The next argument makes a double-blind argument. We articulate specifically that the ways in which individuals interact with capitalism itself is uniquely key because capitalism functions through our universal acceptance of it, which means that the individual type of rejection that Katie and I have within this debate space is uniquely key. However, it has to be a full rejection at all the individual levels so we can create an ontological space that exists outside of capitalism. This is not a double-blind argument. Your double-blind argument simply doesn't work. Next, you say juxtaposition. This is ridiculous. You don't have to justify morally important arguments against morally correct arguments to realize that the morally important arguments are wrong. In addition, you say the difference is based on a socio-economic level. We articulate that juxtaposing these two ideas simply means we're incapable of understanding the ways in which class informs our understanding of race because it creates the epistemic basis of materialism which we use to do this. This means your permutation is incapable of solving. You see alternatives too rigid to be able to solve the problem in the terms of undecidability. The alternative is the only form of undecidability because we are capable of embracing a system where we don't know what the future is, but we know that the method of resistance is not going to be through using the products of capitalism that the affirmative uses. Next, I want to cross-apply next. You say all its fractions of the prevails. That's my above. This isn't capable of happening. It's an individualized rejection within this debate space. I don't think you understand how our critique works. You said the perm exposes nuances. That's not true. The critique itself is key to stopping regeneration. Disadvantages of permutation.
Yes.
Oh. The first disadvantage of permutation is cost of perpetual regeneration. We don't understand classes being the universal identity that means that classes we think that the economies in which solve that issues like racism, this allows capitalism to retrench its hold on our mind, which makes it impossible to solve it in the long term. The next argument that makes it The next argument is that it's past political will. We think that reformist movements we think that the reform has been created when stop the structure of repression, whereas we don't stop which means we don't have political will to stop the capitalist system, which inevitably causes ecological destruction, which makes their impacts inevitable. Run a framework. Cross-player argument, we meet, this doesn't turn ourselves. We need to be able to understand what your advocacy is defending, which is the only role of this debate. No ability to generate offense. Go to the case debate. I think I cross-applied the science fiction arguments to articulate a link on the critique debate itself. Cross-apply those. They're based in capitalism. Onto the politics debate. You think that this like targeted capitalism critique, the first argument is capitalism. The first, the most conditional world is good because it's TVL objective bias, and you don't discover your app does because your critical act is completely untoppable. The next argument is that we're saying that food is the instance of unconditional acceptance of the author versus the advocacy, that you're what I see, that which what I see stands if we like, then you willing as well, because then you like as well. Next, you say the term food is bad in a world with critique, the only thing we're understanding is epistemic foundations because you don't have valid gender offense off of this.
Chris. We will control the solvency of the commodification of individuals, which means that we are capable of controlling the internal link to the impact that is isolated as the most problematic in this debate, which is the use of individuals to create them into objects that means that all violence can be justified against them. It is only a question of internal links, and I think that we are probably the more accurate assessments of what exactly triggers the link of objectification on a much larger scale. First, talking about race is not a methodology, which means that your recognition has already happened, but the priority of solvency of capitalism means that we are capable of solving on a larger scale as well as more durably in terms of the alternative as instead of just the affirmative law. Since you are not advocating a method, you are just advocating a recognition. This is
Our method is to look at the way in which bodies become objectified through labor.
Our method is to look at how bodies become objectified through labor. That is the function of the alternative. Look, race pushes people to sides in capitalism. The reason that your affirmative is a problem is because capitalism has pushed race to the periphery. This is the argument that Megan is making on framework, that the reason that racism can exist in policies and in media is because the political starting point of capitalist exploitation. We are allowed to make racist claims in media because we allowed that to happen in our policy exploitations in capitalism. Things like slavery, things like continued exploitation of individuals of racial minorities allows us to take advantage of individuals and portray this in stereotypes in the media. We are capable of solving racism but look at this. This is how you evaluate the root cause debate. Solving racism may decrease some aspects of capitalist exploitation. We will spot you that. If you decrease racism, you will probably stop some capitalist exploitation. However, if you solve capitalism, you solve the problems of racial exploitation because you solve all objectification and all commodification of people. Solving racism solves an exploitation of a group of people. Solving capitalism solves the exploitation of all people. The justification for objectifying and commodifying all people, which means that on a much larger level, we will solve the premise of their argument. We will solve the premise of why racism is justified. Racism is justified because we can exploit people, because we have been doing it economically. People of every type of skin color, people of every gender identity, we have been excluding. Racism exists as a result of us being able to exploit people through systems of capitalism. Additionally, we will also win an independent dissat to the permutation net benefit. We do not solve. We are incapable of solving things like racism when we all die from ecological collapse and resource wars that make conflict inevitable. When we have an infinite mindset of consumption, there is not a single lick of argumentation made against our ecological destruction impact. This is an independent impact versus that the what I see is incapable of accessing because it relies on a logic of infinite consumption. We solve ecological destruction through solving the logic of objectification and the justification for infinite consumption. This is a net benefit to the criticism that functions to outweigh any net benefit to the permutation. It functions as dissat to the permutation. The only net benefit to the perm could be a premise of the 1AC being good, but we think that identity politics are bad. Megan is excellent on this question. She says that your movement is fractured through the permutation because identity politics fractures people into becoming more defensive of their social location because their identity, they're incapable of unifying with their identity. This means that you you are incapable of generating a coherent resistance to capitalism. So your resistance inevitably breaks down. The more you fracture, the less successful you are against the system of capitalism. Look, when we use people as objects and instruments, it is what allows us to exploit people based on race. In the question of what solves what more, the alternative solves more of the aft than the aft solves. The alternative has a solvency surplus, which is solving ecological destruction that independently outweighs the aft because it makes solving racism impossible when we're all dead.
Alright, so it's going to be an overview on top. Overview on top. Then we're going to go to politics very briefly, and then the alternative. The alternative / perm debate, and then the case in order. Ready?
No, hold on a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I am not.
Alright, cool. You are going to be voting for Concordia HM at the end of this debate. Your ballot is going to say that not only does a permutation solve all the links to capitalism, but additionally the bridging of multiple ideologies is capable of not only solving back for the critique of the affirmative, but also is capable of solving back for all the arguments that they try and talk about. Look, just briefly on the politics dissent. Megan tries to make the argument that multiple worlds are good, this is why they should have access to politics. Lawler states this is just giving, I'm sorry, I know you told me not to do that. This is just giving us another reason as to why the permutation wouldn't be able to work. You try and make the argument that having multiple worlds is also crucial for debate, but additionally we argue that this is also crucial for a world of ideologies. This is devastating in a world where not only do you contradict yourself that multiple ideologies are capable of coming together on the alternative, but additionally the argument that the multiple ideologies are good means that we all also get full access into our permutation arguments. Additionally, you can extend all of our turns on the bottom of the disadvantage. There's no arguments that they can possibly go for.
I think any cross-application of the ideology on this framework of the K to the role of conditionality and the multiple positions we have read are two different distinctions that is never made in the MO, in the context of conditionality.
While I wish that Chase had superhuman powers to predict that you were going to make that argument in the MO, he didn't. You made that argument as your first response on politics. This is a brand new argument that I get access to the way that for you, not only is it the first claim that you make of how to frame the debate, but also I get access to making that in terms of how the rest of the debate ought to be framed as well.
Draw very interesting points and we'll consider.
This means that the only option that you can vote for on politics is for the affirmative, on the alternative. We are winning the permutation is capable of solving. You're going to be voting for not only that the multiple ideologies are capable of coming together, but additionally that the permutation is a necessary test to make sure that the alternative is capable of surviving in the real world. You can extend across Chase's first argument that multiple ideologies come together. They try and make the argument that there's residual links, and the fetishization of capitalism would always mean that we would actually use capitalism as objects. But our first argument is going to be that, for one, this is not unique, but also we argue that we are all individual parts of the system. For example, you're still using timers as a form of capitalism. Not only is this production by the capitalist system, but also we are arguing that the only way.
I think any articulation of the resources used by the debaters within the debate space is an argument that should have been made as a form of contradiction coming out of the MG.
Your disadvantage to the permutation is that capitalism retrenches itself through the way that we actually associate ourselves with objects. It's again another argument that you made out of the MG. I'm sure it's under consideration. Cool. Not only does this mean that we are all individual parts of the system, but additionally this means that multiple ideologies are capable of coming together. Additionally, you can cross-apply the analysis from politics about how multiple worlds are capable of coming together to actually not only create synthesis, but also you can extend across Chase's Butler argument about how this is crucial. Additionally, this actually creates a new trajectory for capitalism. They draw the argument that this is key to question our own intimate relationship with capitalism, but also we are winning reasons as to why the permutation would solve much better for your critique. But additionally, you can extend across the fifth argument about how either your alternative is too rigid or else it's not able to actually exist within the real world. That means that even if you vote for an alternative, even if you vote for your alternative, the second that you actually step out of the round, that their movement is completely fractured. But this is important for a couple of reasons. First is that this gives us direct access to the permutation to solve 100% of the critique, but also that this means that the alternative is always going to be self-defeating. For example, you can extend across Chase's double bind argument. They try and say their argument is that this is morally wrong, that two moral wrongs ought not come together because two moral wrongs ought not come together because it destroys the epistemic of materialism. This is wrong for a couple of reasons. The first is that you can cross-apply our analysis about how multiple worlds are capable of coming together right now, but also our juxtaposition argument isolates specifically that you actually need a counter-reference in terms of your ability to actually solve. For example, I can't say this one thing is a really bad thing, for example, because that's a comparison. The only way that we can actually have these comparisons in the real world is through juxtaposition. That means that our original text is crucial to actually show why your alternative is a good idea. This means that we are getting full access. Additionally, this disadvantage to the permutation is just another reason why economic retrenches itself. I think I already answered that at the top, but additionally, we are winning arguments as to why we are not only solving for the root cause of life, but additionally, we are winning the reasons as to why we are solving for the root, for the colonialization much faster. You're always going to be preferring the affirmative.
Permutation creates a new trajectory, means it doesn't get reentrenched.
In permutation creates a new trajectory, that means it doesn't reentrench itself.
Also, answer their second disadvantage, but how do we make this state look more benevolent?
Additionally, on the second disadvantage, our argument is that not only do you have that's on the thing proper. I'll get to that in a minute. Additionally, you can say on the case proper, you can extend across our arguments about how we solve the root cause and how capitalism is only a means of production. Our argument is that not only do we actually entertain the good of sci-fi, but additionally they drop the third argument about Kolb's learning model. Kolb's learning model argues that learning happens in stages, first with abstract conceptualization and then with active experimentation. That means before anyone can actively put someone into slavery, they first had to have that understanding through ideas. This is what we talk about in our critique. Not only do we actually isolate ourselves within objects, but also mass media is actually just another form of images in the way that we actually transform ourselves, not only the way that we actually relate to objects, but additionally this means that our critique is always going to come first, but additionally you can extend across our arguments about how you can extend across our entire impact scenario about how not only is this crucial to actually not only re-entrenching the mindset of the reality of tomorrow, but additionally embracing sci-fi is also key to spreading the movement outward. That means the alternative is never going to be able to have access to not only spreading this mass media outward, but additionally it's never going to be capable of solving our movement. On their critique, on the arguments of the historical outlook, there's no reason for you to vote there. Our argument is that we still interact with an object and have a historical outlook and move in the way that we actually interact with objects, but additionally we're winning reasons as to why we interacting with objects and images are actually why sci-fi is good, but additionally you can extend across our argument, you can extend across our arguments about how there's actually, about how not only is capitalism residual links happening right now, but also the alternative would never be capable of solve. On their fourth argument about Zizek, they are not winning any reasons as to why using the state would be a bad idea, but also our argument is using the current systems of sci-fi is always capable of solving, not only because it gets the message out there through mass media, but also it has the capability of solving. That means they have no impact to their criticism. Even if you actually win eco-destruction, genocide still happens, you should always let it happen.
Hey, no one has to cry in this great round. It makes me happy. Like when I cry during rounds. My phone. I don't know if you saw me, but that was also okay.
Oh, in that round, though?
Yeah. Should we go first?
I felt so bad for Colin Patrick.